I know this is hard to understand, but we love him the same as we love you.
You can't love him the same. It's not the same. It's different.
Oh, Carol, you sweet summer child. I just can't believe she fell hook, line, and sinker for the Hive's little game. I was so upset with her since last episode, and on my first watch of the finale, I just couldn't make sense of it. I gotta admit, I was disappointed. But after thinking about it a little more, and of course doing a little analysis and research, I'm starting to kind of understand her better, and understand where the writers are coming from. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm definitely Team Humanity, Team Manousos, down with the Hive. But today, I'm going to present you a little bit of a different perspective, the Hive's perspective, and a little more empathy and understanding for our girl Carol. So, let's break it down. Now, Carol falling for Zosia was definitely a choice. And in a way, I get it. A lot of people probably feel the same, seeing constant bad news, corrupt politicians, endless social problems, and no real justice in this world. It's just more shit piling on. And when I was younger, I felt like I could make a difference, go vote, volunteer, donate, do my part. But after years of not seeing change and watching things get worse, you start to get a little jaded and feel like, what's the point? I mean, trying to fight a massive entrenched system feels impossible. At some point, you just want to be happy, tune out the chaos, and live the rest of your days in peace. And I think that's where Carol is coming from. She doesn't want to be the savior of the world, being one against this giant collective. It's just too overwhelming, and it feels impossible. And so maybe this feeling is true, that she can't actually save the world all on her own. But it's like going back to the story of Sisyphus that we talked about last episode that Carol loves. She has to keep rolling that rock up that hill, no matter how pointless and frustrating it might seem. Without any real action, her life feels meaningless, and having a purpose gives life meaning, and it can lead to real peace and real happiness.
I don't think I'm good. It's just feeling good. I must have every happy chemical flowing in my bloodstream. I keep thinking it's going to go away, but then it doesn't, and I don't want it to.
Now, even when she's with Zosia, living out her Raban fantasy, something still just feels off to her. She isn't fulfilled like she thought she'd be, and she's not truly happy. Because deep down, she knows this is all an act. She doesn't feel right about pulling a Mr. Diabate. That's why she's so terrified of Manousos asking all the questions and finding out about what she's been up to with Zosia over here. And she's ignoring all the real problems that need to be addressed. It's a lot like being in a one-sided relationship. The other person, they don't love you the same way you love them. You cling to it though, because you don't love yourself enough to know that you deserve better. That being alone and being happy with yourself is worth more than any superficial type of love. And so the reveal that Helen was basically spying on her with the liquor cabinet motion detector thingy, it's just one of many things that will make Carol question her ideas about love and happiness. It's not this perfect, agree with everything I want fantasy that she's living with Zosia. Like we talked about in episode 4, humans need conflict. Sometimes that's how someone actually shows they care, and sometimes we need a push from others to actually grow. Carol's journey is about self-love, accepting her sexuality, learning to love herself, and I think most importantly, realizing that real love, it can exist outside of this romantic kind. But it's gonna be hard to get there, and this quest to save the world, it's part of what helps her save herself and finally learn to be happy.
Karosturka, ¿quiere salvar el mundo o quiere salvar a su chica?
Unknown word or name. Do you want to save the world or get the girl?
¿Por qué no los dos? I mean, maybe there's a way she can get both, but not just the way she imagines it with her little getaways and romance with Zosia. She's so focused on the idea of romantic love, but the girl that she really needs to love and to save is herself. I know it's corny, but it's true. In one scene, we see Carol reading The Left Hand of Darkness. The book explores sexuality and how it shapes civilization. It's a sci-fi book, and it's set on a faraway planet where these people are androgynous. They have no fixed sex, and they can become male or female whenever it's time to mate. Which role that these people take on, it can change. It's often shaped by the relationship they're in itself. And so because of this, the society, it's mostly peaceful. Sex isn't a constant drive the way it is for humans, so things like seduction, jealousy, and sexual violence is basically non-existent. And so you'd think reading this might make Carol think about how the Hive has been seducing her and using her human desire and attachment against her. But it seems she has the opposite takeaway. She starts seeing the Hive as that society, that people who are peaceful, beyond sex, above labels. Zosia feels androgynous to her, like Raban from her novels. He was originally a man, but able to switch, just like how she rewrites it in her newest chapter of her Waikaro series.
Did she have someone in her past? And what happened to them? Are they in there?
Now, when Carol talks to Zosia, she uses neutral language and sort of backs off on her line of questioning. It feels like she's trying to ask Zosia who she was before the Hive. Was she gay, straight, something else? But then she decides it doesn't matter. She convinces herself that the Hive transcends all of that, just like the people in the book. And given Carol's own trauma around sexuality and forced conversion therapy, it makes sense why she wants to believe this. But ultimately, she is forcing a type of sexuality on Zosia instead of trying to understand who the real Zosia was before the Hive. It's important too, right? And in a way, she's forcing this romantic type of love that the Hive doesn't really seem to care about or understand in the same way we do. In The Left Hand of Darkness, the main character's name is Genli, and he's sent to this planet of androgynous people to invite them to join a larger human collective. His people have learned something called mind speech, basically telepathy, and just like in the Hive and Pluribus, they can't really lie with it. Genli, he meets one of the leaders of the planet, and at one point in the novel, he uses mind speak on the leader. He talks to him in the voice of his dead sibling and lover, as a way of showing how joining this collective is great. They can teach mind speak and connect in powerful, intimate ways. The Hive does something exactly like this in Pluribus. They use familiar voices like Manousos' mother or Memories of Helen with Carol. They use it to show the power of the collective mind, how comforting and intimate it is, how much it feels like a gift to be joined. But unlike in the novel, the way the Hive uses it feels more manipulative, trying to manufacture trust before it's truly earned. Now, in the novel, the two characters are presented as pretty masculine, and they clash at first, especially around sexuality and Genli's struggle to understand a world where gender norms don't exist. Over time and through a lot of shared hardships, they build trust, they fall in love, and not in the traditional kind, but nonetheless something very powerful and very real.
I know this is hard to understand, but we love him the same as we love you.
You can't love him the same. It's not the same. It's different.
I think we'll see Carol Manousos go through something similar, have the same shared hardships, and build trust in a real way like the characters in the novel do. Not the manufactured intimacy that Carol has with Zosia and the Hive. And I think Carol and Manousos will come to love each other too, because ultimately they're not that different from each other. And learning to love herself is a lot like learning to love Manousos, accepting the things she hates about herself that she sees in him. But more on that later. Now back to the whole sexuality theme. It's huge in the novel. It's how it affects your ability to connect with people who are different. And it keeps coming up in the show too. Carol still carries trauma, resentment, and unresolved feelings about her own sexuality, and working through that will likely be a major arc for her in this show. And eventually, she may realize that the love the Hive has for her and Manousos, well, it isn't really different, like she says, at all. It only feels that way to her because of her rigid views on sexuality. Once she lets go of that, it's just love, plain and simple. Now, this all ties into the whole situation with the baby goat and the pet dog and the zoo animals and stuff that the Hive lets loose.
¿Y no es malo valorar igual a un hombre que a una hormiga?
And isn't it evil to value a man the same as an ant?
The Hive is sort of positioned as like a Buddhist type of mindset. Do no harm, let things live how they will, and don't interfere. As we saw with how they let the animals free and they won't even pick an apple to eat for food and all that stuff.
As you know, we can't purposely kill, harm, or otherwise interfere with any form of life.
And when you really think about it, the way we've domesticated all these various species on our planet, well, it is kind of fucked up. It boils down to controlling them for our pleasure or our entertainment, or to force them to do work for us, or even worse, to eventually become our food. We even specifically breed animals in order to become something purely for our own benefit and not theirs, creating genetic problems and shit like that.
All zoos are empty. All dogs are off their chains.
I do not give away my dog.
So from the Hive's perspective, they aren't really evil to release all the animals. To value an ant and a human in the same way by allowing them to go and live, let nature run its course, to have the same type of love for all beings, removed from the sexuality and romance and all that stuff like we talked about. It's just love, plain and simple, like the species in The Left Hand of Darkness. The Hive isn't acting out of cruelty or malice. It genuinely believes it's doing the most ethical thing possible. But it's also the very thing that makes it so dangerous, right? Like, especially when you look at all the lives lost in the initial spread of the virus and the pain it causes the immune, like Carol and Manousos.
Apparently, when it came to the lions and the tigers, they suffered quite a few maulings.
And let's be real, it's probably highly likely the animals that are used to being cared for by the humans will die. So I get why everyone, including myself, I've been up in arms about the goat situation and the dog. It's just sad. But ultimately, even in Buddhism, humans, they aren't the same as ants or animals. All life, yes, it deserves compassion, and Buddhism teaches that through reincarnation, you too may have once been an ant, and you could be again, so, you better treat it right. But humans, they are considered distinct because they have the mental capacity to reflect, to practice the Dharma, and to eventually reach enlightenment. And animals, they don't. And so the Hive, they actually do treat humans as distinct too. Humans are the only species we know of that the virus uniquely works on. The only species that it seems they care to try to turn into this peaceful, more enlightened state. The only species really capable, and maybe even the only species needing to be pacified in this way. But it's sort of a contradiction. Forcibly turning us into this new version of humans, it seems against their philosophy of letting nature run its course, allowing species to live their own lives. But you could argue it's necessary since we've really done a lot of harm to this world. Some people might even compare humanity to a virus on Earth, spreading uncontrollably and destroying everything in its path. The pluribus virus, in a way, is a cure for the world to treat it from this virus that is humanity, to allow it to truly heal and do its thing. And the fake romance and the human love that the Hive provides for Carol and the other immune people, well, it's not really so fake or manipulative to them, at least. The Hive, they're helping the immune people to live freely, to feel loved, and they believe that sharing their gift, spreading the virus, is the ultimate form of love. That's why I love this show, man. It really makes you think. It walks a fine line between what's considered good versus evil. We're sitting here hating on the Hive, but at the same time, when you look at it, humanity ain't so great either, right? Now, moving on to Carol and Manousos and their whole little interactions together.
All the way from Paraguay? Well, hell, I owe it to him, don't I?
Yes, Carol, you owe it to him. But she didn't even give him a chance. She immediately wants to shut him down, despite being the one who called for him to come here. And the Hive, I don't even know how much of it is really intentional, but the way they talk about Manousos to Carol, it doesn't really help set them off on the right foot.
It's not like he's dangerous, is he? Is he dangerous?
We don't think he'd ever hurt you.
Now, this is likely just a reference to how Manousos took the scalpel to one of the Hive in the hospital and his overall attitude towards the Hive, but I can't help but think there's something more to it, and the way this is answered, it kind of leaves room for Carol to also make some major assumptions about this guy and his potential to harm her.
We can't really protect you from one another.
The Hive already planted the seed in episode 2 about not being able to protect the immune people from each other. And Manousos, he isn't really doing himself any favors showing up with a machete and trying to get Carol into his creepy van. We haven't really gotten any backstory on him yet. And in my episode 7 breakdown, I mentioned how I think it's possible he had a rough life, maybe even was part of a militia, or maybe forced to do some heinous shit like Mr. Echo in the show Lost. Something that he had to do to survive. I really hope season 2 starts off with some flashbacks of Manousos so we can get to know him better. But anyways, the point is, just like the characters in The Left Hand of Darkness that we talked about, Manousos and Carol, they immediately clash and they're distrustful of each other. What's funny is that Carol and Manousos are actually very, very similar. Stubborn, abrasive, pushy. There's a Freudian concept called narcissism of small differences. The closer two people are in personality, the more likely they are to clash. It's like hating someone who's basically a mirror of you, because they kind of force you to see the parts of yourself that you don't like or that you don't want to admit are there. This causes people to sort of latch on to any perceived small differences and create conflict out of them in order to force a sense of separation and preserve a sense of individuality and self.
They didn't even want to talk.
Not to me.
Conmigo no.
But I bet they'd love your sparkling personality.
Carol knows she was rejected by the other immune people partly because of her personality, and deep down, she hates that about herself. Manousos, he ends up being kind of the physical embodiment of all the traits that she resents in herself. And it's a lot easier to project that anger onto him than to actually sit with it and reflect. He's kind of rude, he snaps at her, he orders her around thinking he knows what's best. And Carol, she did the exact same shit when she met up with the English-speaking immune people on Air Force One.
Se van a enterar de nuestro plan.
Are you crazy? They are listening. They will find out about our plan.
Why should my family have to leave?
We need to talk amongst ourselves, just the six of us. You think they planted a bug in my house? Are there any microphones in here or recording devices?
Carol and Manousos' introduction, it really highlights how Manousos is going down the same path Carol went down. Just like Carol, he ends up getting the Hive to completely bail out and avoid him too. And he's seeing how interacting with the Hive has changed her. Not only is she more sympathetic to the Hive, but she's gained a lot of intel. He's also got to be thinking, like, what happened to the woman who sent me that video? How did she become this? Now, he had no idea at first who Zosia was to Carol or whether she mattered to her from before the joining. But the shift in Carol's attitude toward the Hive is enough to make him curious. It forces him to reconsider his approach, to realize that there's a lot more to learn by watching and engaging with the Hive rather than staying on the outside. So unlike Carol, he's a little bit more quick to compromise once he realizes all of this. Yeah, technically it took him 2 months to get to this point, but Carol's still on the outs with all the rest of the other immune, and she hasn't really gotten anywhere, but left with a broken heart. And again, like in the novel she was reading, The Left Hand of Darkness, Carol, she has that sexuality, that romance driving her. While Manousos, he's like the alien species in the book. All that noise is removed. Not only that, she's heavily drinking, and Manousos, he ain't about that. So he's able to think a little more clearly. And boy, is he clever. When he finally decides to engage with the Hive, he thinks to ask and talk to whoever Carol has been talking to. He's not just trying to learn more about the Hive, but also wants to learn more about how to get to Carol.
What did you tell him?
Everything.
Everything.
This is a whole nother reason why it seems like he's been involved in some shit before. He has what kind of like interrogation tactics. He knows how to get information. He knows how to ask the right questions.
We didn't volunteer anything. He asked us specific questions, detailed questions. He was very thorough and insistent.
And in just a few hours, he's able to learn enough to do some testing of the Hive signal. We see how when the Hive seizes up due to the screaming, that the radio signal he found gets distorted and fucked up. This episode, it confirms what we've all been guessing, that figuring out the signal is how to save the world. We see him doing some really deep research about electromagnetic signals and all that, and I bet he's wishing he stayed in Paraguay so he could get the books in Spanish instead of having to do all this translation. But anyways, one of the books is from the physicist Michael Faraday, who was probably most famously known for the Faraday cage. A Faraday cage is an enclosure that blocks electromagnetic fields. It's made from conductive material, which redistributes incoming electrical charge along its surface. This prevents external electromagnetic signals from penetrating the enclosure, leaving whatever is inside shielded and unaffected. All this, it goes back to what we talked about in my last episode breakdown about The Answer being written in Waikaro. In the chapter that was released by Apple, Lucasia journeys to a remote isle seeking the healer Madame Asclepius to cure a sickness overtaking her crew. She finds the healer in a cave who is treating Raban, brought back from the dead. So Manousos, he is most definitely the healer Asclepius. And maybe instead of the literal cave where he brings Raban back to life, he will create a Faraday cage to interrupt the Hive signal and restore Zosia back to her original life. You know what's funny, in the last episode I already talked about how Manousos represents Asclepius and all the stuff about how this is a real character from Greek mythology, but I didn't even put together how he drives the ambulance, which has the symbol of the serpent and the staff that is tied to Asclepius. Anyways, it's all clear now. He is that dude. Now, the one thing I'm not really sure of is how this will all work. So far, whenever the Hive signal has been sort of interrupted by the screaming, it hasn't actually cured anyone. They're stuck in that seizure-like state. And I've tried reading up more about this radio wave and electromagnetic signal stuff, but it's just way over my head. There's obviously a difference between screaming and completely shielding someone from the signal in a Faraday cage. But is that really all it takes? How does one truly cure humanity by rewriting their RNA back to the original script, removing the part that allows humans to get sort of controlled by the signal? What's also on my mind is, can they just tweak the signal itself, make it do something different to people? It seems like what the virus does is just make humans receptive to this new radio wave signal stuff. It also makes me question how the first infected, how were they immediately affected by the signal? Was it just the signal from space strong enough to work on them, and one of the Hive's first action was to start broadcasting the signal locally on Earth? There's lots of questions that I hope we get answered in season 2. I'm also curious to hear what you guys think about this. Now, all of Manousos' meddling, it results in Carol finally using that Chekhov's gun, the giant shotty from the cop car. We all knew it would come into play eventually, but I was a little bit disappointed that was it. I wonder if it will come up again later, but I guess right now we have a much bigger setup with a different Chekhov's gun, the atomic bomb.
Y si nosotros no podemos arreglarlos, están mejor muertos.
If we can't fix them, they are better off dead.
When she brings out the atomic bomb, I think these words from Manousos were in the back of her mind. It's interesting how they both kind of switched. In the beginning of the episode, it was Manousos who was ready to annihilate the Earth, and Carol who was adamant that they were still people worth having lives. Now, kind of going back when Carol was doing her thing with Zosia traveling around, we see that she's drinking regular drinks. I mean, I guess her hot cocoa could be spiked, but it seems like for once she's sober and she's drinking teas and stuff and she's more clear-headed. I don't know if she would have gotten to the line of questioning and revelation about the stem cells if she was still drinking heavily. I don't know if the Hive would even have still given Carol the atomic bomb. Now, Carol, she may have given an ultimatum. If you try to turn me, I'll use this bomb. A single atom bomb, it wouldn't really be effective in blowing up the whole world. And if she really wanted to just end her life rather than become one with the Hive, well, there'd be an easier way to accomplish that. I think the threat is in blowing up their giant antenna, the primary goal of the Hive. If she can't save this world, maybe she can save another. Okay, finally, we gotta talk about the stem cells. Back in my episode 6 breakdown, we talked about this a little bit and how it didn't seem possible to harvest the correct type of stem cells from Carol's eggs. Now, stem cells from the hip bone, they're very specific and unique to a person's immune system. They're changed by the various environmental and life factors that have impacted each person. Stem cells from someone's eggs, they don't factor all of that in.
Induced pluripotent stem cells can be very fragile.
As far as I can tell from looking into this kind of science that Zosia's talking about, it just doesn't exist in today's world. Not that it's impossible, just we aren't there yet. And so I guess it does make sense in this sci-fi world where they do have the greatest, brightest minds working together for this one purpose, that they would be able to make advances in science, learn how to work with what they got from Carol's eggs.
How long do I have?
A month.
The scene where they turn the goat girl shows really how quickly they can work. With someone who's willing, they were able to concoct a new form of the virus within 71 days. It's not wild to assume that they've been working on Carol's eggs since day one. Okay, before we go, there's one last thing that's kind of been bothering me, and I don't know if there's something to it or if I'm just looking for something that isn't there. But remember in the last episode, Zosia is asked about her favorite food, and she brings up being a child in Gdansk, watching the ships.
I would watch the ships leaving Gdansk.
But in episode 2, when we first met her, she's in an Arabic country. What was she doing there? I mean, I guess it's not impossible that she moved there at some point in her life, or she may have just been traveling or something like that, but I don't know. It just really felt like she was native to there, to me at least. So I don't know if this is showing some sort of loose lie that was being told. Like maybe she was pulling up a memory of someone else from the Hive. I also wonder if there's anything about the ships that she talks about in her memory. Apparently there's a huge shipyard known for its trade union called Solidarity that was founded there. The name Solidarity alone is meaningful to how the Hive is, all humans united as one. And at that shipyard they build all kinds of ships, from transporting to fishing to even scientific vessels. So maybe the only way to get Zosia secluded into the Faraday cage is by ship.
And I was fascinated by these giant ships. Who built them? What for? Where were they going? And now I know.
And as she said, she knows what all these ships are about. Now, as always, if you enjoyed this video, please ensure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more breakdowns. I'd love to hear your theories and ideas in the comments below. Special thanks to channel members for throwing a little extra support my way. This means a lot, and it really does help keep this channel alive and going. Until next time, toodles.